Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Parks and Bennis podcast. Back after the short break to sort of hide ourselves from the embarrassment of our hot takes and what have you. Know, we're back and we're going to review the first half of the Premier League season because we're at Christmas now, and I think that's a good chance to look back at teams and what they've done so far. We'll start from the bottom and go with Sheffield United, who are bottom. I'll start with you, Aaron. What have you made of Sheffield United season so far?
Pure disappointment, if I'm being brutally honest. I personally thought that they would be. I didn't think they'd be anywhere near as good as last year, but I think it's safe to say nobody thought they'd be this bad. They're 2 points after 14 games. They look to be on course for beating Derby's record as the worst Premier League side ever, and it looks like they'll be playing Championship football next year. I think it's a mark of how important Dean Smith was last season as well.
Dean Smith.
I don't think Dean Smith, sorry, Dean Henderson, I meant. Aaron Ramsdale, I don't particularly rate, and is a lot worse than Dean Henderson. I think another thing is that their system was very complex. It worked in League One and the Championship. Teams struggled to work them out. But in the Premier League with a high caliber coach, after a year in the Premier League where they obviously did really well, teams have worked them out, and now I think it's a case of their lack of quality is shining through.
Yeah, for me, the way I look at it, they started the season off with strikers who can't really score, and defensively they've not been as good. They look like a Championship team when they play. If I was Chris Wilder, I'd step aside now and, I don't know, save the embarrassment of potentially going down with no wins or anything. It is looking possible the way they're playing, unlucky games, conceding goals, scoring lots of goals, not a lot of goals, sorry, and they look really in trouble. I think they're going to get relegated. Alfie, what are your thoughts?
I think that their season's obviously been extremely underwhelming. Defensively, last season they were really good, and I think they were one of the better defensive sides in the league, which made up for their lack of goals. However, this season they've been bad in both departments, and when you're starting Oliver Burke up front, you've not got a lot of chances of staying in the Premier League. They've been a bit unlucky as well, though. They've had a few 1-0 losses towards the end, games like against Leicester, against West Ham, a few tight games that in another instance could have gone their way, but they just lack that cutting edge, and I think this season will be their last in the Premier League for now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just don't see how they're going to stay up. For me, I don't know how they're going to do for the rest of the season, but if it was me, I would obviously, I think if I was Chris Wilder, I'd step aside and I'd get someone in dedicated for the Championship. Maybe, heaven forbid, someone like Eddie Howe who can just come in, see the rest of the season out, and then take them back up. Or I don't know, Alan Neil, someone within the club that can just come in for a bit. I don't know. They really are struggling. We'll move on to West Brom. As we're speaking, they are getting pumped by Aston Villa, considering they're down to 10 men. So I think they can't really read too much into it. But obviously, they've really struggled this season. In the bottom three, they've only won one game. They've sacked Slaven Bilic and replaced them with Sam Allardyce. First of all, and that was obviously early days in Sam Allardyce's era, but what have you made of that appointment, Aaron?
It's really the typical team struggling, going with an attacking coach, and they've gone for a more defensive, more solid option in Sam Allardyce. I mean, personally, I don't think Sam Allardyce is in it for West Brom. There's a reason he hasn't been in the job for 2 years. I think he's in it for the money. They're probably paying him a hell of a lot of money to take the job. We'll see if he can do it again. I mean, they aren't a million miles away of 17th, but they're obviously losing to Aston Villa now. And yeah, like I said, it's early to say how they'll do. It's his first game in charge, but it's really just a stereotypical firefighter manager that they've gone for.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think sacking Slaven Bilic was slightly harsh considering he took them up, no money spent, and it's difficult because things have gone against them. But I feel like their team's so bad. If you're going to sack Slaven Village, I think the only appointment you can get away with really is Sam Allardyce. I think he's got a lot of experience of keeping teams up. Obviously, it's not gone for them tonight, but with a full half a season left, I think if anyone's going to keep West Brom up, it'll probably be Sam Allardyce. Alfie, both of these men have managed West Ham. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, as you know, I'm not a big fan of Sam Allardyce, and I am quite a big fan of Slaven Bilic. But I do believe if either of them are to keep West Brom up, it would be Sam Allardyce. However, I don't believe there's longevity in the appointment. I think it's just Sam's come for a big payday. I don't really think the squad are big fans of them. Most of them attacking flair players going forward, like Pereira and Diangana. I don't think that Sam will get the best out of them. And I do think they'll end up coming down. But I don't think it'll be by a huge margin just because of the way Big Sam will play. He'll make them a bit more assured defensively. But they simply lack quality up front. I don't believe that Carlin Grant is good enough. And I just think they won't score enough goals, and they'll, like today's game against Villa, they'll always be losing 1 or 2-0, and they'll end up going down.
Yeah, I think he will end up going down, but I do feel like he'll give her a better go than he would have done under Slaven Village, I think. But I still think they'll go down. Another team currently in the bottom three, but for me at this point, I don't think will go down, is Burnley. I think we've had laughter is from these two. I feel like they haven't spent no money. They had a tough start of the season with injuries and that. They've looked more solid of late, 4 clean sheets and 2 wins. A couple of 0-0s. I think they've got 2 or 3 games in that. Maybe I think once they get results, they'll be fine. I think it's been not great at times, but I feel like it's got better. I think when everything's said or done, I think, my opinion anyway, Burnley will be in the Premier League next season. What are your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, they're probably one of the more disappointing teams, especially compared to last season. Burnley have always been a pretty solid side, but as it stands, they're currently 18th. They had a very tough start to the season, but they've picked up more results recently. Obviously, they've only lost once in their last 6. Sean Dyche is obviously good enough to keep a team up, as shown over the last few years. It's certainly a case of their quality and their lack of transfer business in the summer that's really costing them. But yeah, I do think I can see Burnley staying up. It's really dependent on the teams currently above them, maybe dropping off, Fulham in particular, to an extent Brighton if they continue to miss the amount of chances that they do. But yeah, it's interesting to see if Burnley will end up in the bottom 3 or if Sean Dyche will keep them up once again.
I think they'll be fine. Alfie, what are your thoughts?
I don't think there's any chance that Burnley go down, to be honest. They started really poorly, as we know, but I think a lot of that was to do with the saga, the transfer saga going on with James Tarkowski, a player who was heavily linked with Leicester and West Ham, but ended up staying at Burnley. I think ever since he's come back into the team and sort of settled down a bit more, forgot about the transfer business, they've been a lot more solid, and I think as of late they've been quite good. Beating Arsenal, okay, they're absolutely terrible, but they had to get the win. Drawing against Everton and games like that, they're starting to grind points a little bit more now, and they aren't as open as they were at the start of the season, in which they were not like their usual selves. I think they'll stay up eventually, but I do think Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes need to start kicking on a bit more because they've not been the same players as they were last season. And at the moment, Ashley Barnes couldn't hit the sea from a boat, if I'm honest with you.
Ashley Barnes runs slower than me. Good job Jay Rodriguez plays up front because he's slightly better. Look, it's not vintage, it's not great, but I think while the takeovers come through and obviously more money's coming into the club, I think Dyche will just finish 17th, 16th this season maybe, and then maybe kick on in the summer with more money. But I do expect Sean Dyche to keep Burnley in the Premier League. I think you look at the other teams in and around the relegation battle, like the teams we just mentioned, and obviously Fulham coming up now. They're more streetwise than them, and I expect them to stay up. Just on Fulham, I think they've been pleasantly surprised, and I think they've dug in, they've done a lot better. Scott Parker's done a good job for me so far this season, but for me, I still don't feel like there'll be enough. Aaron, what are your thoughts on Fulham?
It surprised me, actually. I thought they'd struggle to get 10 points, and guess what? They won 10 points after 14 games. Yeah, they're currently outside the bottom three in goal difference. They've impressed me a little bit in recent weeks, to be fair to them. They've got a few decent players. They've probably got the apart from these other teams genuinely in a relegation scrap, they've probably got the most quality. Certainly one of. And yeah, Scott Parker's doing all right. I maybe underrated him at times, but you can't know what he's doing at the moment, currently being outside the bottom three. So yeah, for them, long way to continue.
Yeah, they're doing certainly a lot better than what we expected, but for me, they will still get relegated this season. Just what are your thoughts, Alfie?
I was in agreement with Aaron. I think I had them to get just over 20 points. After we made our predictions pod before the season started, they did sign a few good players on loan, which has helped them a lot. Areola, who I think is quite a very good goalkeeper, particularly impressed against us. I think he's been a really good signing for them. Lookman, as much as you don't like him, he's actually been quite a crucial player for them.
Yeah, let's hold judgment on
that. But besides that comical penalty against West Ham, and I can't remember the guy's name, the centre back they signed from Lyon, Anderson, I think. He's played
Anderson,
quite well.
Name or something like that. Jochen Anderson. Mads Anderson plays for Barnsley.
Yeah. He's played quite well. Besides the red card yesterday, which was not a red. Well, it was a red card, but it wasn't a penalty. VAR out. So yeah, their loan signings have done quite well. So if they do stay up, they won't. At the moment, they don't have a lot of longevity in that squad, considering they didn't get any sort of clauses to buy those players. But I do think they have a really good chance of staying up, particularly due to the midfield. I think, in particular, a player I've highlighted is Frank Zambo Anguissa. Last time Fulham were in the Prem, I thought he was absolutely embarrassing, terrible. But this season he's been excellent, particularly his dribbling. I didn't realise he was as good as a ball carrier as he is. So he's quite good defensively and going forward. And I think if Fulham are to stay up, they'll have him to thank for quite a lot of their success.
Yeah, I agree. I really rate Zambo Anguissa. I think someone at Everton, I think he'll be a good player for us, but we will see. I think it'll be a struggle for Fulham, but I feel like they'll just have enough, maybe over Brighton. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave it to Aaron and Alfie for a couple of minutes to talk about Brighton.
I will hold my hands up and admit that I may have overrated Brighton a tad in the summer. However, with that being said, I think their only real main and biggest issue at the moment is their goal scoring or lack of, because they're creating a lot of chances. Today they had 21 shots and 18 chances created, I think it was, but they couldn't put it in the back of the net. It took some good close control in front of the goal from Danny Welbeck to get an equaliser against Sheffield United. Ultimately, Brighton are probably where they should be. They're 16th, but
are they?
I mean, in terms of the quality of their squad, I'd say 16th is probably about right. But
I remember when you said under Chris Hughton that I was underrating their squad. You've had 2 transfer windows on top of that. Okay.
I think that I know you're not a fan of XG, but their XG does speak for itself. It really just shows that their performances are better than 16th, but they're just not putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's ultimately the only real thing that they need in order to start pushing towards the top half, even if they're not finishing in the top half. I think I saw a stat that
the top half. I will release explicit pictures online. That's how confident I am of them not finishing in the top half.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I reckon they will, but I saw a stat earlier that they had a higher XG today against Sheffield United than Liverpool did against Crystal Palace, and Liverpool scored 7 goals. It's getting a bit ridiculous.
That just proves to me that XG doesn't have a clue what it's going on about.
Yeah, I just think Brighton are about right 16 quality wise. They should have enough to stay up, but if they continue playing this way without scoring goals, then there's going to be real issues.
I find XG hugely entertaining for absolutely no reason. I think they'll struggle. I think they'll get relegated, to be honest. But you know, Alfie, are you a fan of Brighton like everyone else is for no reason?
No, I'm not. I don't enjoy watching them play that much. Okay, yeah, they create a few chances, but forget XG. They're not very good at putting the ball in the back of the net, and they hit the post more often than DT hits his wife. It's just a fact.
No.
I'm definitely keeping that one in.
One normal episode of the Parks and Bennis podcast. All I have for will never happen.
So, I'm not a big fan of Brighton. I think Neil Maupay is a bit of a joke with the way he speaks compared to his actual footballing ability. I think defensively, they've not been great either. I think Ben White's not been as good as I thought he'd be. But one player I am a huge, huge fan of is the right wing back, Tariq Lamptey. I think he's been one of the most exciting players to watch in the league this season. And I don't think Chelsea should have let him go for 4 million.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, you can come back to the Premier League when they get relegated in the summer. Another team that are just really bad is Arsenal. What's gone on at Arsenal, Aaron? They're really bad.
We could dedicate an entire podcast to Arsenal, but I think to keep it short as I can, they're terrible at the moment. Arteta is not doing well at all at the moment. But
I'm not sure your thoughts on Mikel Arteta, but what are your thoughts on what's going on there with him?
I think the problems lie a lot deeper than the head coach, and it's very similar to what's happening at Watford at the moment. They have a squad full of high earners who don't care about the club, who have a bad attitude, and there's only so much Arteta can do for me. I think I'd actually argue they should keep Arteta unless they're in a genuine relegation scrap, because they need to find some sort of stability.
They are in a genuine relegation scrap.
Yeah, it's certainly getting on the verge now. I think I'd actually argue that they should sacrifice just a couple of seasons of maybe finishing 8th, 9th, 10th, just get some stability going.
Can we lucky to finish 8th, 9th, or 10th?
Yeah, that's just the thing. I know it's really bad to say about Arsenal, but ultimately they are way below that level at the moment. They need some stability. They need to offload all the high earners and get some players who are hungry to play for the badge.
I've got a genuine question to ask. Right, and this isn't part of my agenda. I'm just asking. This is going to get clipped up in somewhere when Arteta's won the Champions League in about 4 years' time. But genuine question: if Sean Dyche was the Arsenal manager, would they be 15th?
They wouldn't be doing much better, but they'd be more comfortable.
Right, just asking. If Graham Potter was the Arsenal manager, where would he be?
I'd say similar position again, because they'd have better goal scorers.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay. Alfie, thoughts on Arsenal?
Arsenal are the comedy central of the Premier League. I've already mentioned DT once on this podcast, and I'm about to mention him again. He throws his phone more often than Arsenal can score, if I'm honest. Aubameyang has not hit the heights of last season, in which I'm not even joking. I think they weren't much better last season. They were just relying on the fact that Aubameyang carried them. But in terms of their actual play, they're absolutely terrible. The defence is like a crisp packet. It can be easily broken and it's easy to obtain. I don't think Leno's been as good as he was last season, especially his distribution. He takes longer on the ball than a cat at a zebra crossing. And I just don't get all over the pitch. They're just a disgrace. Their owners have not helped them. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of animosity in the club, and I don't think AFTV helps that, particularly Ty. And I just don't see any positivity to be an Arsenal fan at the moment. I literally cannot think of one element of their club that's going well, apart from the youth academy, which I think is overrated, because if we actually look at the players that have come through, Eddie and Nketiah couldn't make it at Leeds, couldn't hit a bondo and a banjo.
I wouldn't have Eddie and Nketiah going on the tea runs at Goodison.
Oh, he's awful. I'm sorry, he's shocking. Joe Willock, terrible footballer, wouldn't make it in the Premier League. He's a championship midfielder. Saka, okay, he's good. I think slightly overrated, but let's hide that bit from the Arsenal fans. Balogun looks like a bright star, and I think he does need a loan spell. Maybe somewhere like Watford would help him. But that's their academy. I do think it's slightly overrated. I think their club is a joke. The fans are a joke. The owner is a joke. There's nothing to be happy about.
I mean, you don't like Arsenal, do you?
I don't actually mind.
You don't mind them. You don't like the fans, the players, the manager, or the board.
No, it's just I don't wish them to lose every game. I don't hate them. I just think they're a joke. It is funny watching AFTV, seeing Ty claim that Arteta deserves to stay because they beat Dundalk in the Europa League. But apart from that, that's just Arsenal. They're a bit of a joke.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think we'll move on from Arsenal. And while we do that, I'm just going to check who's 14th. I think it's Leeds, is it?
It's Leeds.
It's Leeds.
Leeds United.
All these hipster clubs at the bottom half of the league. Okay.
We're just going to roll the fact that Burnley are there as well.
Yeah, but Burnley have spent £1 million. Come on. Let's be realistic here.
Of course.
£1 million. £1 million. Anyway, Leeds United. I mean, they've done pretty well, I feel.
Yeah, I think they're probably in about the right position. I figure they'll be around 14th, and they're currently 14th. They'll probably be safe. When they play well, they play very, very well. They play some really good stuff. When they don't, obviously, as you've seen today, they can see the 6 of Man United, which obviously isn't great at all. But
I'm just going to say something. If Burnley win both their games in hand, I think they go on the same points as Leeds. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think Leeds will probably be fine. There won't be anything special. They won't finish in the top half or anything like that. But they'll have a fine, solid season in the Premier League.
I agree. I mean, Marcelo Bielsa is not the third best manager in the world, but they're doing okay. Alfie, thoughts on Leeds United?
Well, I predicted Leeds to come 14th. I think literally everything I've said about Leeds has come true. The fact that their defence is more open than Lana Rhodes, true.
Oh, no. Don't slut shame people.
The fact that their defence is so open.
This is out.
The fact that their defence is so open, they've conceded the most goals in the league. I'm not sure exactly how many it is, but I know it's above 26, which is not great in 14 games.
I mean, I'm not going to repeat on the podcast what I said before about Ian Holloway's Blackpool and Leeds.
Yeah. Another player I highlighted as to who won't be worth the money they paid for him was Rodrigo. And I don't actually think that's his fault. I think that's partially due to the form of Bamford, who has exceeded my expectations. I still think he's missed the most big chances in the league, and he missed a couple today. But overall, he's played quite well, and his general play's been good. But Rodrigo, I just don't think he was worth the money they paid. And considering the fact they're playing him in midfield, I think it would have been smarter for them to go for a creative midfielder and then just got a cheaper backup striker.
Fair enough. We'll move on to Crystal Palace. Pretty bog standard season apart from yesterday. They got whacked yesterday. That's just berserk. But things can happen like that in the Premier League. Liverpool got beat 7-2. I mean, it hasn't affected them. I feel like it was one bad game in an otherwise stable season, in my opinion. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, it's bog standard. It's just another solid season for Palace. Everything you'd expect for them. They're 13th, they're solid. They probably won't go down. They might be on the verge of the top half, but ultimately, it's Roy's. I've said it so many times already. It's probably going to be Roy's final season, so they just need a solid season. That's clearly what's going to happen. They're not conceding many, apart from yesterday, of course, against 7-0 against Liverpool. But I feel like they're attacking better. Certainly in certain games, I think they are anyway. And yeah, like I said, there isn't really much else to say. It's just a solid season for Palace.
Yeah, I feel like yesterday skewed the whole sort of picture for them defensively. It's really made them look worse than they actually are. I feel like if they get a run together, they'll be all right. If they get allowed that game to affect them, they might be in a bit of trouble. I feel like when everything's said and done, and I've said this since pre-season, Palace will be okay. I think the battle weary is what I would say, and on the exact same point as Newcastle, and I echo everything what I've said about Palace about Newcastle. They're just bog standard. Alfie, we may as well do this together because they're basically the same team. Thoughts on Palace and Newcastle?
As for Crystal Palace, I do think that they've got a really good duo in Zaha and Eze. Zaha particularly has been excellent this season. And compared to last season, in which he was quite disappointing, he's really stepped up this season. In certain games, he's won them for Palace on his own. I think, like Aaron said, defensively, for the most part, they've been okay. Their record doesn't actually look great defensively, but I think that's been because of a couple certain fixtures. Yesterday's demolition from Liverpool and the 4-0 loss to Chelsea as well.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they've been pretty good. Seeing Palace score 5 goals in one game of football was quite shocking. But then again, they was playing against West Brom. But I think that just highlights how good Zaha and Eze have been as a partnership this season. As for Newcastle, I said before we started this pod, they are the luckiest side in the league. I don't know how a side that never, ever, ever, ever goes in the box has had 4 or 5 penalties. It's mind-boggling. Most of them undeserved, let's face it, ridiculous. And if it wasn't for VAR, they'd probably be quite a bit lower. But Wilson's played okay. 8 goals is obviously excellent, but most of them penalties. I'm not sure where St. Maximin has been this season. I think he's injured, but potentially with him, they'd be a bit higher in the league. But for the most part, they've been. I think they've been the worst side in the league to watch. Honestly, I think they're terrible.
Worst side in the league to watch? I don't know about that. I think
to
Sheffield
watch.
United have been worse to watch.
They give them a run for their money, but it's just so infuriating. It's so infuriating watching Newcastle sit on the line for 89 minutes and then score a penalty in the 90th. I don't know how they...
It's getting results. What's the problem?
I don't get how they do it, because last season you could sort of see that they were at least creating some chances.
I've said
not many.
This is what they do. It's Steve Bruce. That's what he's forged a reputation at Newcastle to do.
And at the moment, it's a penalty.
Sit deep and get a moment.
Yeah, I do think I don't actually think Bruce has done a bad job.
No, I mean it depends what you want.
I know I've spoke about how Newcastle are very.
Then he's not the answer for that. But if you want someone to get 40 points, he's absolutely the right man.
Yeah. In terms of results, he's done well. But I know a lot of Newcastle fans are getting very fed up with his style of play.
Well, that's what I've said. If you want expansive football, I don't think you look at Steve Bruce. What are your thoughts on Newcastle, Aaron?
Again, this season is just pretty bog standard. Sorry. Similarly to Palace, they're defending well for the most part. They're never going to really do much going forward, but yeah, they're solid. There isn't really much to say about both these teams because they're doing everything I'd expect them to do. Solid mid-table finishers.
Yeah, I think in the world of unpredictability and mad results and what's going to happen, it's a surprise to no one that 12th and 13th place are being occupied by Newcastle and Crystal Palace. And another team that for me is flattered to deceive this season, Wolves. Aaron, what were your thoughts on Wolves?
They've been underwhelming from the outside looking in. They're currently 11th, which I wouldn't really expect from them at this stage. I know it's still fairly early days, but I'd expect them to be a little bit higher, even though they are only 4 points off 6th. But I think it's safe to say their style of play isn't anywhere near as exciting as it was a couple of seasons ago. They're a lot more negative, I think. They're more boring to watch. It's just, I'd say it's probably about right that they've fallen off a little bit, considering they've been so good over the past 2 seasons. But compared to those last 2 seasons, however, they are a little bit disappointing. But they won't go down, and they'll probably be in the top half. So it's nothing to be worried about.
That just reminded me that Wolves, that talk sport said Wolves will get relegated. Yeah, looking okay. No comment. 10th is West Ham. Now, I'll go to Alfie on this one. What's gone on at West Ham this season?
You would have been forgiven at the start of the season for predicting West Ham to not have a good year, despite our excellent end to last season, in which gave West Ham fans a lot of hope. The opening game, I think, was one of the worst performances by any team in the league this season. To lose 2-0 and actually get dominated in play by Newcastle should be a criminal offence. But that's what happened. It was embarrassing to watch on that day. And I actually lost all hope. It was only one game that I lost all hope for the season after that game. I think everyone I know said we're going down. But the opposite has happened since that game. I think we've only had 1 or 2 games in which we've played quite poorly. But most players have stepped up. Ogbonna in particular is my hammer of the year so far.
Hammer of the year?
That's the award. That's what it's called.
It's what they call it. Oh, fair enough. That just made me laugh. There's no reason There's no reason for that to make me laugh, but it has. So carry on.
But anyway, Ogbonna's been really good so far this season. Towards the end of last season, I think he's been one of the better defenders in the league this season. As well as scoring 2 or 3 goals, his defending has just been top notch, and he's been by far our best player in the air defensively. Moving on to the left back / centre back, Aaron Creswell, most chances created out of any defender in the league this season. Make of that what you will. He could cross a road with 1,000 cars. He's just that good at crossing. Onto the right back, Vladimir Kufal has been one of the best signings of the season, I think, if you take price into consideration. He's a bargain. 5 million for a player who can attack, can defend, gives his all, and runs throughout the whole pitch. He's quick, relatively quick. His passing's good, and he can cross the ball well. I don't actually know what he's bad at yet. I'm sure I'll find out soon. But he's an excellent player, and I'm happy that he's at West Ham. Before, I don't want to talk about West Ham too much, but in midfield we've been good. Going forward, we've not been that great, but I think we've hit the woodwork 9 times, which is the most in the league. Although most people would predict it's Brighton, which just shows you how overrated they are.
What about Brighton? Sorry.
So everyone says about how Brighton hit the woodwork so much, including me. Yeah.
You just said we hit the woodwork more than I don't know what.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You'd think that Brighton have hit the woodwork the most in the league, but it's actually West Ham. Okay. So I think that shows you how poor our finishing has been at times, and how, in terms of performances, we should actually be maybe a bit higher than we are. Fornals in particular is not a very good finisher and has cost us at times. But I think we've been decent. Uh, I think Europe's a bit too high this season. But I think if we can get top half, that'd be a decent season, considering with all things considered.
Yeah, I agree. Any thoughts on West Ham, Alfie? Aaron, sorry.
To be honest, I will just have to hold my hands up again and say I was very wrong about West Ham. I'll keep it short because I don't really want to speak too much about West Ham, but they are going to have a good season. They'll be solid. David Moyes has impressed me. They're playing at a good enough level. I'm not going to say expect them to drop off because they'll end up finishing 7th, no my luck. But yeah, they'll be mid-table. They'll have a good season, and it's just about where they go from there.
Okay. Thoughts on Aston Villa for me? Dean Smith has really surprised me this season, and he's gone from a manager for me who I've said was terrible to a manager that's, for me, in the modern game, passable for Premier League standards with a good team.
Yeah, I'll say a word or two about Villa. They've done well.
Yeah, Aaron.
Pretty much what I said about West Ham is exactly the same as for Aston Villa. They've just impressed me. They've done very, very well. I think keeping Grealish was crucial to that, and I was always a big fan of the signing of Ollie Watkins. But I think most importantly, the credit has to go to Dean Smith, and it hurts to say that because I'm not a fan of him at all. Again, I would probably expect Villa to drop off more than West Ham, but again, they'll be fine. They'll be comfortably in mid-table.
Yeah, I probably would agree. What about? It really surprises me to see Chelsea 8th in the table for a team that was going to challenge for the league, win it all. And Alfie, what are your thoughts on Chelsea?
To be honest, I think they probably deserve to be higher than 8th in the league, and when they beat us tomorrow, they'll go higher than 8th in the league.
Absolutely.
But I think as well as they've done in parts, a couple of their biggest signings have been quite underwhelming. Kai Havertz, for example, for 70 million. I do think he'll end up justifying that price tag, but at the moment he looks like a German Mason Mount, maybe even a bit worse than him. He's not been great so far this season, apart from his hat-trick against Barnsley, which is really impressive. But moving on, Timo Verna is another player who's finished and hasn't been great, hasn't justified price tag just yet. But I don't know why Lampard's playing him on the wing. Seems a bit weird to sign one of Europe's best strikers and play him on the wing in favour, for the most part, Tammy Abraham up front. So I'm not sure why they're doing that. But all their defensive signings have gone well. And I've got to admit that I think I got it a little bit wrong on Ben Chilwell. I still don't think he's worth 50 million.
I'm not admitting defeat in the agenda. No way.
I think he's a decent fullback. And they've definitely done well so far this season. With all things considered, if they beat West Ham tomorrow.
Yeah. Aaron.
This is actually the first time I'm looking at the table and seeing Chelsea in 8th. I didn't actually realise they were this low. I think that probably says more about how tight it is at the top. The 3 points separates the 4 points separates 4th and 8th. Sorry. I would expect them to finish high up in the table, probably in the top 3-4, around there anyway. I do agree that Kai Havertz is flattered to deceive, and he's probably their biggest flop so far of all the signings they made in the summer. But I don't think we should write him off. He's still very young. He's never a generational talent, as some people said, but he is a very, very good talent with a lot of potential. So I do expect him to come good. But just generally, they started the season quite slowly. They picked it up a bit. I do think they're only 8th because of how tight it is at the top, like I said. So I do think they'll finish higher up. It's been a good season so far, I'd say, for Chelsea. Just maybe not as good as some people would have expected it to be.
Yeah, I think it's tight to the top, and like I said, they could finish anywhere for me between still 1st and 8th, and ultimately we'll see. I think they'll be in the top 4. I feel. Man City are a team that have really underperformed. Alfie, quick thoughts on Man City?
Before I talk about them underperforming, which they really have for the most part, but defensively they've been incredible. Apart from the Leicester game, they've been one of the best defensive sides in Europe. Which I think, I'm not sure how that has happened, but I think a lot of the credit has to go down to Cancelo, who I think has been excellent this season, and Diaz, who looks to be quite a good signing for them, particularly because Laporte's not actually played that much. So to see them concede such a little amount of goals, I think it's 12 so far, is really impressive. And I think they've been really good so far this season defensively. But going forward, they've definitely not hit the heights they've hit in other seasons. They don't lack creativity. They've just lacked in finishing. I personally don't believe that Jesus is the striker for them if they want to challenge for these leagues and Champions Leagues again. But I do think that they have a lot of potential to get back to where they were 1 or 2 years ago with a couple big signings that I think they should make, like a Haaland or someone like that.
Okay, Aaron, quick thoughts, Manchester City.
I don't know how ridiculous this statement is, but I would argue that despite Arsenal currently sitting 15th in the table, they aren't the biggest underperformers this year, considering Man City's quality in their squad, on their bench, considering the quality of Pep. 7th is so far from good enough.
Man City are points ahead of Aston Villa, having played a game more.
Yeah, there you are. And they do have a game in hand on the teams above them, but regardless, seventh in the league is nowhere near good enough. Even if they win that game in hand, they'd only go as high as third on goal difference. They'd only go as high as third, which is still not good enough. I know Pep signed a new deal, but I'd still be curious to see if this is his final season in charge, just on the basis that they're underperforming so much. Could this be the end somehow? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I think it is mainly down to do with their attack not hitting the heights, like Alfie said. Aguero's injury has obviously played a part in that, but it's just generally been a very poor season for Man City and just generally underwhelming.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I would say Arsenal a little bit more because 15th is a hell of a jump from 7th with a game in hand and a lot more to play for. But I completely agree. Man City are really bad at the moment, and we'll see how we go. One thing we all got right, well, I think me and Aaron certainly got right, was Southampton would do pretty well this season. I think Ralph Hasenhuttl has done a fantastic job for me, and they're in the top 6. Aaron, would you agree?
Yeah, this is actually a club that I'm looking forward to talking about because they're in the top 6. I've said so many times how much I like Ralph Hasenhuttl. I think I had them to finish 8th or 9th, and they're currently 6th and a couple points ahead of where I predicted them to be. But it's been a very, very good season, and I don't think they'll finish in the top 6, but I can certainly see them finishing in a European place. I don't really have much more to say on that. They're just having a very good season, and it's interesting to see the 14th best coach in the Premier League currently in the top 6.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Alfie, thoughts on Southampton?
Well, I definitely got them right as well, relatively, because I predicted them to come 9th. At the moment, they're 6th. I'd expect them to be around 9th to 7th by the time the table ends. But one thing I didn't expect with Southampton was that Yannick Vestergaard would be their player of the season so far. He seems to have just transformed into this monster that can't be stopped. His passing's been excellent, and his lack of pace has not been exposed at all. And in the air, he's definitely the best player in the league for me. I mean, when you see James Ward-Prowse, the best set piece taker in the league, crossing it into him, you just know it's going to be a goal in most games. And that's why he's already got 3 or 4 goals this season from centre-back. But speaking of James Ward-Prowse, another player who's been fantastic, particularly in his set pieces. Pep Guardiola this week described him as the best free kick taker he's ever seen. I think that's a bit far, but he's certainly a very good free kick taker. And it's helped them a lot this season, especially considering Danny Ings has had a couple injuries here and there this season. Certainly hasn't been able to hit the heights of last season so far, but it's not hurt them. and I think they've been very good going forward. They've used the players they've got to their full ability. Romeu has got the most tackles in the league so far this season, and although he's not great on the ball, I think the way Southampton play has got the best out of him in just doing the dirty work and then laying it off to a more creative player like Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, Spurs are fifth, and I'm really surprised to see Spurs fifth. But yeah, it's so tight. But what are your thoughts on Tottenham as?
I think their league position is just another example of them really suffering from how tight it is at the top, because not long ago they were seemingly challenging for the title. I still actually think they will challenge for the title, even though their results against Leicester today was very poor. Son and Kane have been unbelievable this season. I don't know if it's still the case, but I'm pretty sure they've got one of the most goal contributions as a pair. They won't finish fifth; they'll finish in the top three, if you ask me. And Jose Mourinho has massively improved them from last season, I'd say, because their style isn't anything spectacular, as we all know that a Jose Mourinho team would be, but ultimately he's getting results, and that's what he's doing. And all credit should go to Jose.
Yeah, Alfie, what are your judgments on Tottenham?
I'm a little bit in a disagreement with Aaron in the fact that I think there's absolutely no way that they challenge for the title. Considering they've been at their best form in a couple years this season, yet are still 6 points behind an injury hit Liverpool, tells the whole story for me. They are injury hit. They've had the most injuries in the league by a mile. Let's face it.
I think we'll give them a run for the money,
But anyway, yeah, I don't think there's any way Tottenham win the league this season. They've definitely got a style of play that has worked for them. It's not expansive, it's not great to watch, but they get the best out of the two players who are arguably the two best players in the league. Son and Kane, I know Aaron already said about that goal contribution stat, in which they are the second most in the league in that department ever, just behind, I believe it's Drogba and Lampard, or I think it's that. But yeah, them two players are incredible, and I think if it wasn't for them, they'd be a lot lower, because their style of play is not great to watch. I'm still not a huge fan of the right back, Aurier, and today he made another mistake that just makes you put your head in your hands in shock at what the hell he is thinking. But I've got to be a bit fair to Spurs, because I'm acting as if they're 20th at the moment. I think overall they definitely deserve to be higher than 6th, which is actually where I predicted them to come. I think Ndombele has come on a lot from last season, in which I thought he was quite poor. This season he's done very well, and I also am a big fan of the left back. I think he's excellent.
Reguilon.
Yeah, Reguilon, he's brilliant. I watched him a few times at Real Madrid. I know they have a buyback clause on him, and I would recommend they take that option up, because he just looks fantastic.
For me, I think Tottenham have done well. They've kept within it. They've improved on last season. They've got an identity, a style of play. They've got a threat in the final third, and I think I said they'll be in the top 3 come the end of the season, and I would stick with that. Moving on, Everton are in the top 4 on Christmas Day. I have no words to describe how good that is. So I'll let Aaron and Alfie talk about Everton.
I predicted Everton to finish in the top 7, I believe, and they'll probably still finish in the top 7. Currently 4th. They've been fantastic. I think the signings they made in the summer of Alan Decore and James Rodriguez are proven to be very, very crucial, because they wouldn't be anywhere near this position if they stuck with their previous midfield for the bulk of the season. I know Andre Gomes is still playing quite a lot, and Alex Iwobi has actually improved, certainly recently. I've watched him quite a bit, and he's massively impressed me. Ancelotti's doing a fantastic job. They don't really have much negativity going for them in each position, if you ask me. It's only really in their depth, which is, when you see the likes of Andre Gomes still playing Premier League games, it really makes you wonder how, because he's so out of his depth. But when you ignore Andre Gomez and you see the rest of their team, it's all very positive. They've got Digne at left back. They've got a solid defence as a whole. Their midfield's very good. Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison have been superb. I know Richarlison maybe not so much compared to last year, but Calvert-Lewin in particular has been arguably the best striker in the league. Probably just probably barring Harry Kane's, for me being the best striker in the league. Even Pickford has actually not been terrible this year.
Well, I'm not sure about that. But
at times maybe. I say he's not been as bad as last year anyway.
Alston's been better.
Alston, yeah. But they've ultimately they're a very different side under Ancelotti than they were under Marco Silva. And all credit goes to Ancelotti for making them the side that they are, and it'll be a very successful season come the end of it.
Yeah, Alfie's going to love this couple of minutes of talking about Everton, so hit it away.
I predicted Everton to come 9th. I don't think that will happen, but I certainly wouldn't say that it's totally unrealistic.
No, not at all. With the injuries we got, we could fall like a star.
And if you look at how tight the league is, I'm not sure how many points there is between 9th and Everton. But I don't. Yeah, 5. It's not that many if you look at it, especially considering teams like West Ham have a game in hand. But talking about Everton, they've been fantastic for the most part, apart from a little dip in form, in which I think they maybe lost 3 in a row or something like that.
Newcastle on here, Leeds.
Yeah. A little dip in form, but apart from that, they've been fantastic. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been fantastic. I think all of his goals are one-touch finishes. He's a penalty box predator. His positioning is arguably the best in the league. He used to just be a striker that didn't know where the goal was, but he's completely turned that around. And for me, he deserves his place in the England squad, certainly, and he should be coming on in the World Cup when we're struggling. Looking at the midfield, as Aaron said, Rodriguez, certainly when he first came in, was absolutely incredible. And I think I went a bit over the top comparing him to 15-16 Payet. But as of late, I don't know, he's had a couple injuries. He's not been quite as similar.
He's been injured, so how can you judge someone that's been injured?
I think the last few times I've watched him, he's been a bit poor. But apart from that, he's obviously been a good signing.
When he was playing, all of our moments created was coming through him, but okay.
Yeah, okay. Allen's been a good signing, particularly in games that I've seen them losing. He's really dragged them through at times, not necessarily to victory, but he's certainly been one of the main players on the pitch. A game I'd like to highlight, although they lost this game against Leeds, I think Allen was a driving force, and I think the best player on the pitch that day. And he really took the game into his hands. Pardon?
That result against Leeds knocks me sick.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't score against Leeds United.
We won the game. We'd be second now.
Yeah. But Everton have been fantastic. As much as it pains me to say it, because somehow I know quite a few Everton fans. But they've been fantastic, and defensively they've been brilliant as of late as well, which was my only criticism of them. But as of late, they've been brilliant defensively.
You know what I'm going to say to you now, Alfie? Everton Street, he's better than you.
Oh no! Still yesterday, he's putting on his Instagram, title charges back on. Oh.
Here we go.
I just wanna notice how Alfie, when talking about the midfield, left out Abdoulaye Doucouré.
Yeah, fine. We'll move on.
Oh yeah, I'll speak for Doucouré just for 30 seconds. I think I've seen some Everton fans praise him a lot, and I've seen some say he's not that great. I personally don't think he's that great.
About the latter, so.
I'm not a big Doucouré fan, and we'll just leave it at that.
People who aren't a Doucouré fan aren't Iwobi fans, aren't Mina fans, and yeah, so we'll just move on. Fine. Man United are in the top 3. I don't know how again, but it's so tight. Aaron, Man U.
It's very sudden, isn't it, that Man United is suddenly 3rd? I swear they were 15th about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, they could well have been.
But anyway, they're currently third. I still don't rate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I probably never will rate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but they're third, and they won't have a particularly special season. They won't challenge for the title. Maybe they'll finish in the top 4. Maybe they won't. They'll probably finish in the top 6. No matter what happens this year, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can't be in charge next year, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, Alfie, thoughts?
I'll just talk quickly on United. I think I picked them to come third, and that's where they are at the moment. Yeah, by the criticism they've got from certain people, you'd have sworn they got relegated last week. But of course they didn't. And I think a lot of that has to come down to Bruno Fernandes, who for me is arguably the best player in the league this season. I just think he's incredible. And he just tries things and he sees things that others don't. He scores crucial goals for United, and for me, he just carries them up the pitch. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Solskjaer either, and I think I'm not a big fan of McTominay either. But I've got to admit, both of them done very well against Leeds today, and I'll just leave it at that on United.
Yeah. Again, Leicester City are second and Liverpool are first. I can see why Liverpool are first because they're the best team. But Leicester second, I don't think they're the second best team in this league.
Yeah, I don't think Leicester have played anywhere near well enough to be second in the league. Not that they've been bad. They have been good. They got a good result today against Spurs, but I don't think they're second in the league worthy. They may finish in the top 6, which would be a good year, but they certainly impressed me in comparison to the second half of last season, where they massively dropped off. I remember being very critical of them over the past few months of last season. So they've been good in that regard. I just don't think they'll finish second in the league, and yeah, that's all I can really say. That they're good. They're not second in the league, good, but they're solid enough to finish in the top 8 at least.
I feel like they're really good. I feel like they've got a good team. Rodgers has done a very good job, but it just feels like they'll have a really odd result sometimes, and you're not quite sure how they've ended up where they are because of the odd results.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing bad about them at the moment. Maybe I was being a bit harsh. They are a very good side, but I just don't think they're second in the league very good. If you know what I mean.
You like to be talking about teams that are a lot better than Leicester, but the way the results have come the way it is, I think they're doing very well. I'll be Leicester. Well, what do you think they're second in the league quality?
Yeah, I don't think they're second in the league quality, but I do think that they're a good side. A lot of their success is obviously down to Jamie Vardy, who I think once again has been brilliant this season. Another side that's had a lot of penalties, but I think that's unlike Newcastle. That's mostly down to the fact that Vardy's just a menace. His runs are just very hard to stop, and he's at times defenders just have to take him down. But yeah, they've been pretty good. A player who I wasn't a big fan of before this season that I am a fan of now is James Justin. He's been very impressive recently when I've seen him. And another player who I'm a fan of is Wesley Fofana. And I think that just shows you that Leicester, for me, have the best scouting team in the league. The way they do their recruitment is just incredible if you look at where their players were before they arrived at Leicester.
Yeah. Top of the league, Liverpool. They're a very good team, but they feel more beatable this season. That's just me.
I think they probably feel more beatable just because they don't have Van Dijk. They've had more injury problems that they did last year, but they'll probably win the league again. They'll probably be comfortable, especially with Man City not on it. I fully expect another title for Klopp. Again, just a very good year for that Liverpool side.
Yeah. What would you say, Alfie?
Liverpool have been obviously brilliant this season. Bar the odd weird game, particularly the 7-2 loss to Aston Villa. One department they've not actually been that good in is defensively. I'm not sure why that is, because even with Van Dijk, they weren't very good defensively, but they've made up for it going forward. And Salah, for me, is the best player in the league.
Okay, we'll end on that bombshell that Mohamed Salah's the best player in the Premier League according to Alfie Jones. We hope you've enjoyed the podcast. We've reviewed every team. And see you soon.